Good afternoon, Jan.
Michael, good afternoon. It's having a problem here with the wires. It's not gonna work the way
Oh
I
no.
wish. It should be better.
Yes.
One is too short and the other one is too long. Who cares?
There you go.
So, no
Excellent.
rubbish behind me.
Aha.
So that's not from my office.
No, no. And so you've been enjoying your vacation?
Well, still traveling. Tomorrow is one more day, and Saturday going back.
Ah, okay.
So, what about you? You were on a
Excellent.
cruise?
Yes, yes, indeed. Yeah, last week my daughter got married, and so we took the whole family on the honeymoon.
Okay,
It was a great time.
the whole
Yes,
family.
yes. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. She wanted it
must
that
be
way.
great.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah, she reached out to us and said, "I know that we were planning on getting married in Grandpa's backyard and all that stuff, but you know what? This cruise wedding thing sounds a whole lot easier. We'd like to do that." And so we're like, "Yeah, okay, cool. So you want us to just get on the boat, you see you get married, and then let you sail off on your honeymoon?" I said, "No, I want you to come too." So okay, I think Grandma and Grandpa are going to want to come too. Yeah, let them come. And so yeah, we just kind of um, you you opened up the invitations, and it's like, yeah, if you want to sail, then sail. Otherwise, show up at the wedding, and we also had a dinner before the wedding, so that we could all just
Hmm.
get together in Galveston and have a good time. And it turned out that 23, no, 27 guests were sailing, so it was a it was a
Okay.
huge party.
And it was a real sailboat?
This was well, we say sailing. It was a cruise ship, so um,
Hmm.
but yeah, this was the Carnival Dream, which is
Okay.
a ship that Jenny and Kayla had cruised on before. I'd never been on this particular boat. In fact, this was my first
Hmm.
Carnival cruise. It's a very different cruise line from the others. Um, more of a party boat than an
Hmm.
elegant yeah, experience like I'm used to.
Uh, no, it's the first time I hear about an honeymoon on a cruise ship, but it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. It worked out pretty well. Yeah, so
Mm.
Kayla and Joe came over to our house from Colorado about a week before, and we got
Mhm.
things all set up here, and then they stayed a couple of days after. So they
Mhm.
um, they have made it back home now, but we had a
Okay.
really good long visit.
Hmm. And so, meanwhile, you did some programming as well.
Yes, yes, not very much because yeah, I did not take the laptop on the cruise. That is my hard and fast rule: no laptops on
Okay.
cruises. Um, Back when we were camping, that was my rule: no laptops at the campground. I broke that rule
Okay.
once, and actually it turned out pretty well. Um, but usually
Mhm.
that's my time to disconnect. But yeah, when I got back after recovering a bit from the week, did a little bit of work on Janaga, moving us just a little bit closer um, to being able to deploy a MAUI application with Janaga, and I think we're now at the point where all the pieces are there for a disconnected MAUI application, and now we just need um, to to harden the SQL stuff and see
Mm.
what needs to be fixed in order to get a. Let's see. Did I say disconnected? Yeah, we can deploy a connected MAUI application, but yeah, we need to get your SQL library in there so that we can deploy a disconnected application.
Yeah. Be- because in theory it should work.
Yeah, in
It's
theory.
not optimized yet. Uh,
Yes.
because you did a little bit, I did nothing. I do carry my laptop always.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
even have a second screen. I even carry the second screen with me. You never know why.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Since you are the sole business owner and support for the business, I guess you
mm,
can't really get away from it.
well, yeah, there are always small urgent things, but
Hmm.
so far it was quite nice. We have been walking around here.
Oh, excellent.
Uh, and today, my wife said, "No, it's going to be raining today." I say, "Great, great. I don't want to go out." But in the end, the sun is there anyway. But I didn't want to miss this because I'm getting behind on Inaga too much, and afterwards I will have a lot of difficulties to catch up. So I say, okay, let's attend this session anyway.
Very good.
Um, but so to work disconnected without the optimizations, we can use the SQLite.
Hmm.
It should work. It passes all the tests. Are there other things that have to be corrected?
I don't know. I just haven't tried plugging it in and seeing it work. So yeah,
Okay.
I've been fixing issues as they come up with um, the authorization with there was a really interesting one that hit me just a couple of days ago. Um, so with the core library itself, and so so it's like, okay, we saw the core library work in little toy examples and in tests, um,
Mm,
and so this is the first time of, okay, it's published to the NuGet repository, and we're installing it, and we've got this much code that the customer owns, and everything else is behind the NuGet package. Um, and so in that real world scenario, okay, it's really running on a simulated device. Um, it, what what goes wrong? And as you might
mm,
expect, things go wrong. But
yeah.
I was able to get some of those things fixed, and now um, we've got a quasi realistic application. So so far, so this is the blog Maui example, and so far it is still read only, but doing the full authorization flow, and then loading data uh, from the replicator and displaying it within the application.
Mhm.
So let's do a quick share on that. Okay, we have the application
Well,
running here.
there were some
Okay.
there were some additional, what was it? Some additional things we had to implement um, into the SQLite. But I'm not sure did I implement them or not. There was this, because here it's not implemented exception, but I'm not sure whether this is the latest version.
Hmm.
For the get MRU date, set MRU date.
Yes, yeah, I remember we were working through those, and and you had the translation from local to UTC, got that all tested. So yeah, I
But
do remember.
also this the MRU date. I did connection factoring because I changed table definition, if I remember well. Am I working here on an old version?
Well, let's
It's
see which one I've got.
probably old version. This one.
Okay, so I've got a version that has get MRU dates,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
it's doing this.
I should have that version somewhere also.
Yeah, this is the one that is
Mhm.
in the GitHub repository.
Yeah. That's what I thought
In
when
the
I uploaded it. And I did some testing on that. I wrote tests for that if I remember
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yes,
But
indeed.
so in fact, with that version, it should work.
Yes. In fact, I'll just go ahead and run the test just to make sure.
Mm.
And test run finished. One failed. Why did this fail? This might be, expected it to be 1839, but found 2339. I wonder if this is a time zone thing. Yeah, let me run all of the tests in this suite. Okay. Okay, so 14 of these tests pass, but just this one fails. And it's failing right there on this one. It expected 1839 and found 2339.
You are 5 hours from UTC?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Okay, so it might be, I think we did figure out date time parse versus some other. Okay, yeah, this one here, adjust to universal. Okay, so yeah, I think what's happening is we're taking now as a local date, it's adjusting it to universal, but then comparing it to the local date.
Mm.
So I think actually, if we were to do date time, well, how can we write this test in a way that it works in every time zone?
But I remember one of the previous times we discussed about these time zone things in
Mm-hmm.
UTC, and I wonder whether I implemented these things or not afterwards. It might
Yeah,
just be there.
yeah. I see. I do remember working with it here, and you figured out that this was the way to make sure that we got a UTC date here. So this one is not doing that, so we are getting a local date, which is converted to UTC. So this comes out as UTC, but that's still local. So yeah, but I really, I know what to do. To universal time right here. That way it'll work in any time zone. So we're converting local to universal when we check it. And now, yep, it makes it past that one and gets to this one. So to universal time here, and to universal time there. Okay, and it passes. That was easy enough. Okay, so that's confirming that even if we do pass in a local time, it's converted to universal before it's stored. And then we'll load it as universal.
Then why why was it working on my side
Um,
before? Yes.
let's see. Yeah, I don't think that you were ever at offset 0. So I think your natural offset in France is
Yeah,
like,
-2 or -1 depends
yeah.
on the.
Yeah, but if you were testing this from London at the right time of year,
No, I was
then
there.
it would work.
No, but it's not on this version. I think I will have to search for this source code on my main computer.
Okay. Well, in the meantime, I will go ahead and create a new branch here to test local to universal.
Let's write that down.
Okay.
Because otherwise, I'm gonna forget it again.
Well, that branch is up there, and I'll go ahead and even create a pull request for it. Okay. There it is. And, oh, yeah, this is the wrong browser. I'm not logged in that browser. Let's switch to this browser and create pull request. There we go. Well, it's the right browser, but I'm still not logged in. All right, log in. Oh, did want to log in under that account. Let's sign out of that one. Log in as Michael L. Perry. And confirm. Hold, please. Go to GitHub. Approve. All right, now I should be able to create the pull request. Okay. There we go. So that gives us our reminder to get that merged in. Interesting. I thought that it was running all the. Oh, okay. Yeah, it's running all the tests in CI, but the server that it's running on is UTC. That's why it worked. Okay. All right. Well, so coming back to blog MAUI, here is the working application. We've got a couple of posts that are loaded. Let me stop the application so that we can see it run from the beginning. So splash screen, and then it goes to the gatekeeper, which then figures out that it already has an active session for you, gets you logged in, and then navigates to the main page. Then the main page runs the specification, and now we've got our posts loaded. So that much is working. We've got this one here that's uninitialized, and there's an interesting thing happening there. Let's go back to... this is how I set up the data. So this is an HTTP file. I used HTTP files in order to demonstrate Replicator as a service. So that was in the video that I uploaded last week. And HTTP files are a new standard that this little extension here, HTTP YAC, yeah, this plugin, and there's another plugin that's pretty popular for HTTP files. This is the one that I prefer. That basically you write an HTTP header and the HTTP command, and then the header, and then the body, and that's just your file. And then you can send that file. Setting up an environment, like here I've set up an environment called local, that lets you have variables like this. So I've got the .env.local, and that has my replicator URL, which you can see right there. There it is. I'll make sure not to hover over the secret. But there's a secret inside of this file as well. And that secret is just for the authorization and distribution rules. So you can deploy those just using HTTP, or you can deploy those using code, the CI/CD stuff that I covered in the new CLI tool.
So in fact, these HTTP files, they replace the functionality of Postman.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I'm liking these files over Postman because they're just text and they can go in your repository. I also heard that Postman is changing their monetization model, so it might be a little bit more difficult in the future to share a Postman collection with other people. But this way, it's just part of the repo and it's easy to share. They're not quite as powerful as Postman. There's no pre or post scripts that you can run, so you can't create whole test collections and all that stuff. But for doing this, that's exactly what you need. And they also support OAuth. So authorization, I'm just going to use OAuth with the authorization code flow. And as you can see, it's already loading all of the configuration that it needs from my local environment to say, okay, here's the endpoint. So I'm going to direct the user to that endpoint in order to get the login experience. And then the token endpoint is once I have the ID token, I can use that to exchange it for the access token. Got my client ID, and I'm using Pixie, so it's also generating a challenge. So it's just doing all that for me, and then it sets the authorization header.
And all these parameters are coming from that environment file?
Yes. Yep. Okay. So with that, I'm able to use the read endpoint in this case to take a look at all of the posts for this particular site. This is how I populated it. So same authorization, but now we're posting to the right endpoint. And here I'm creating a post and setting the title and then replacing the title with a new version. So you can see that the post is created with a site and an author. Let me do the get from this server, and since I'd already logged in, it already had the authorization code, so I was able to just use that. This is actually finding 3 posts on the replicator, and that's because I gradually modified this to resolve some issues. So you'll see that one of these posts is from a different date. That was a completely different file I think actually I used Postman to do that one, and that was a different Postman collection uh, that created that post. Um, and then using this file, the date that it's using here, that's the date that you see here and here. So it looks like these two facts should actually be the same fact because they've got the same created at date. But they have different hashes. So this ID here, we are getting from ID here. So it's the hash of post. But the reason that that they are actually different facts is because initially I forgot to include the author predecessor. So so an older version just had created at and cite. And I can demonstrate that by saying authors. Let's go ahead and query for author being a Janaga user, such that author is equal to post author Janaga user. So that should give me back the authors for each of these posts. So send that. And now I'm getting back this other one, that one did have the author predecessor. This one here did not, so we have none. And that one here did.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, and your name shows up inside of my public key. So, yeah, a different set of predecessors means it's a different fact, computes a different hash. That caused a bit of a problem for me, because when I deserialize these facts into C#, I need to set all of the properties in C#. And so the C# record has an author type. So we come back in here and take a look at, where was it? Blog model, yeah. So here is the post, the user, author. So it needs to be able to set that that property, and if the fact doesn't have that predecessor, then it's not going to be able to do that. This is not nullable, so it's not going to allow this to just simply not exist. So it threw an exception. But it threw an exception while trying to load this incorrect fact. What I really wanted it to do was to go ahead and load this correct one, and this one also matches the type signature, so go ahead and load that one too, and just simply ignore the incorrect one. And the reason that's going to show up in actual production applications is not just that you're gradually iterating as you develop the application, but also versioning. So you might have one version of the application that doesn't have a predecessor, and then you need to modify it for the next version and add a predecessor. So so I need a mechanism for you to be able to see your old data and see your new data. So the mechanism that I recommend using for that is structural versioning, where you don't give a version number to the whole model, because parts of the model change and other parts don't. So like when you see people versioning an API, here's /v1 inside of the URL, and then this one is /v2 inside of the URL. And some of those data types between v1 and v2 are exactly the same, and others are different. So so I said, okay, that's putting too much underneath the version number. I want to be able to individually version different fact types. But furthermore, if you give things version numbers, then you put things in order, and that's a total order. And I like to avoid total order. I prefer partial order. So it would be really nice if I didn't have to know this was version 2 and that was version 1, and 2 came after 1. So instead, with structural versioning, you just look at the structure of the fact, and if the structure matches a certain shape, then it's that version. Otherwise, it's a different version that matches. So what I ultimately want to be able to do is to be able to have two different records, like maybe call that post old, and this one doesn't have the predecessor, but they have the same fact type.
Yep.
And then I want it to be able to choose which of these two it's going to deserialize as, based on the structure of the fact. And it'll see, okay, this one matches, this one here matches that structure, and the other two match that structure. So just load them that way. I haven't fully realized that yet, because then I need a way for these two to satisfy the same specification, and you should be able to get back a collection of post and post old inside of the same collection. So maybe as an application developer, give them a common interface, and then use that interface in the specification. So there's still some work to be done to make that work.
It becomes a way of overloading.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, you should be able to use that for versioning. You should also be able to use that same mechanism, just sensing the structure and serializing the right type, in order to implement any kind of polymorphism that you need to within your application. In a dynamic application, it's all just bags of properties. But in a statically typed language, then instead of just bags of properties that you would check to see, does this property exist, instead you would use some kind of polymorphic interfaces or class hierarchy. So one should be able to do that.
Because then why give the record post and post old a different name? We might just make both post have a different signature.
Yeah. The problem is that C# is going to require that they be either they have a different name or they are in a different namespace. So that's another way that you could organize your code, if you chose to, is to have some namespace that is the prior version, and then you put just the things that have changed. You keep their old versions in that one. So as the app developer, I want you to be able to make that choice yourself, and then the library will just see a set of types, and will determine which one to use. Yep. And my preferred method would not be what I said here of just old, but instead there should be some meaning behind moving from one data structure to another. So maybe this was your original data structure, and then this is the data structure that you decided to come up with when you wanted to support multiple author blogs. So right here, this is fine if you can just assume that the creator of the blog is also the author of all the posts. And then you say, you know what, that's a bad assumption. I need to keep track of the author. But then you would use some semantic label to say, okay, this is a single author post. That's what I would prefer to do. that has meaning to the developer. It doesn't impose any kind of order, saying this is old, that's new, or this is V1, that's V2. Um, but it gives you all the tools you need.
Focuses on the possibilities.
Yeah. But in this case, I still had this thing to deal with, and I don't have this mechanism yet. So when I was loading this data, I had two choices. I could either, three choices really. I could say, oh, that replicator's bad, just drop that replicator, create a new one. I don't want to force people to do that. And then the other option was that I could delete this post, because I do have the blog post deleted fact. And I was thinking about, okay, that's just a quick fix, let's solve the problem. But then I was like, no, I really want to, to solve this. So what I did was, inside of the core library, there's a deserializer, and this is where everything goes to turn these products into actual projection results. So a product is like a Cartesian product. It's a tuple. In fact, in some parts of the code, I actually have renamed from product to tuple. I probably need to make that official. Everything should be tuple. But yeah, so a product is a result of a specification, and it's nothing to do with a C# type. But deserialize turns those into these projected results, which actually have the C# object in them. So right here is the actual projection for each product. And there's our tree structure, so that each of these projections can have collections that they can then roll up into the child trees. So when deserializing, this is where it was throwing an exception, because it was looking for the author predecessor, and the facts that it was looking at inside of these products, some of them didn't have it. And so it would just throw an exception. And so what I ended up doing, like here, deserialized simple projection is an example of that. Here, deserialized to type is what was throwing, but that's inside of a for each, because it's going through all of the products. So what I did was I wrapped that in a try-catch, so that if that throws, then we just ignore that particular product and move on to the next one. So now we get back all of the projections that can actually be represented with these C# types. Now, as a developer, I would really like you to know that this has happened. So you're not just bringing up your application and saying, well, where's my data? I want you to be able to see that your data looks like this, and you actually needed that author predecessor. So I still have to figure out a good way to communicate that to the developer.
Yeah, because this means that the record without author is just left out now, for now.
Yep. Yep.
Because if we use that for versioning, we will be missing the old data.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, and right now this this emitter, this is something that that caches all of the factories for deserializing types. So it uses reflection the first time it sees that type and builds a factory, and then it compiles that factory and then keeps it just as a function that says, okay, here's a fact, give me back a type. So this emitter needs to evolve so that it can, it has several different types that it can convert a particular fact type into. And that would allow you to do this thing. And then the emitter will pick the appropriate one and give you back the right type. So that's thing number one that needs to happen. And then thing number two is if none of those match, then through the application log, somehow inform the developer.
Just the message unknown fact type seem.
Yeah, and I think it can even give some really meaningful error messages with recommendations. I tried to use these types. They expect this predecessor, that predecessor wasn't present, that kind of thing, and therefore, add that predecessor or create a new type that, or remove that predecessor or create a new type that doesn't have that predecessor. Give you those recommendations in the error message. But in order for the developer to see that error message, they will, I'll need to know something about the way in which they're running the application. So in MAUI, you've got a console logger, and it's a different console logger for Android versus iOS, but there's an abstraction, so you can write to the console. Then if this were inside of a Blazor application, then there would be a different way for you to see the errors. But I just don't want it to throw as an exception. I mean, as a developer, you'll definitely see that, but that also means that you wouldn't be in the right place to say, okay, that's just bad data, and I need you to ignore it.
Mm-hmm. What we could do is add an error table to the database and log it into the database and sync it automatically back to the replicator.
Oh, okay, so I see what you mean.
The advantage is that the administrator who has access to the replicator, he has the error logs of all the clients.
That is awesome, yeah. Yeah.
Because if my customers are using the application, if something goes wrong, I have to ask them to set up TeamViewer, take over their screen.
That's right, yeah.
Log. It's so much easier if I can tell them, I found an error. I got an error from your system, and I fixed it before you called me.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, so then you could just go right in here, and then instead of just seeing the setup stuff, which I haven't warmed it up today, you would have another card here that would let you see all the errors. I don't like that. That is full service.
It's just another fact that we generate, an error fact, which contains the stack, the whole stack overview, the error messages type, error numbers.
Yes. Okay.
And an identification from the client. For example, the username or whatever.
Yes. I love that idea. Okay.
You only have to be careful that the error log is not generating an error.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So it might, for that reason, it might make sense not to actually use the fact mechanism in order to share errors. So it might be that, okay, the whole idea of replication is for your application data, and then there's metadata. There's already behind the scenes, there's already a database that has have very specific like authentication tables with columns. They're not stored as facts. Um, what's what's kind of interesting is this portal is using it is using Janaga, so it is uh, running its own replicator, but it's not your replicator. Um, so yeah, any action that you do here creates a fact that something in the backend subscribes to, and responds by updating a database, which then is used at runtime for your replicator. So yeah, it might make sense for that just to be like you originally said, a table in the database on the mobile application that that has its own synchronization mechanism. Just push errors.
I mean, we could just write it to an HTTP endpoint.
Yeah.
But the fact that we already have a synchronization mechanism.
Yeah.
The technology is there. Because in the beginning, you might have bugs which are related to the synchronization mechanism itself.
Mm-hmm.
And there you get into trouble. But once the library gets more mature, it will be application errors that, especially application errors, and the library should be working fine almost all the time.
Yeah. One issue here is the authorization rules. So we've got these authorization rules that represent who is authorized to create what facts. If we used your replicator and we put those facts into the same mechanism, then your application would have to authorize those facts for any user. So yeah, I would like this to remain just your application. So that's another reason that we might want to have it be something separate. It might actually be a separate replicator that's using the same stuff, but that we've already set up ourselves. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Kind of side channel.
Yeah. But yeah, I really like that idea of being able to see all of your errors right here. To set up workflow for errors, like, as they come in, do the quick automatic triage and say, okay, this is the same error as these other people are seeing, so group them together, and then notification rules around, the first time you see an error, notify this person, but then don't keep notifying them. Mark them as fixed in version so that as you see them, that this is, you can check the version number in the error and say, or even do that automatically. This is known to occur in older versions, but they should die out over time as people upgrade. Yeah.
They are already a step further. I think in the first step, if we are just able to centralize the logging of all these errors.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm dreaming ahead. In fact, I would probably just want to partner with one of these companies that already does that kind of stuff, and then say, hey, you can subscribe to their service, and then we'll poke in. So maybe open telemetry so that they can, so that we can integrate. Mm-hmm. But yeah, yep, you're absolutely right. That is the way to do it. So yeah, right here, that will go into the error log. Awesome. And so with all that, we have stuff loading. So the next thing to look at is what happens if we flip this little switch right here and go into airplane mode. So, yeah, this is the brand new stuff I have not tried yet. So let's see what breaks. If I hit the back button, it's going to go back to the gatekeeper, which is going to see you're logged in, and it's going to navigate you forward again. It's not the user experience that I want, but I'll use it right now because it does that. So, and boom. It looks like it just crashed the app.
Yeah. It's not loading from the local database.
Right. Yes. Yep. It's crashing. So, so before adding your SQLite library, I would like to make this experience not crash, and then maybe even be a somewhat meaningful experience. You should be able to, as an app developer, know that okay, it's time to put SQLite in there, and as an end user, understand what's happening with the application.
If we just click on the refresh button in the application, does that make a difference?
Yeah, at this point, it's not able to start the app.
You have first to put it on airplane mode off.
Yeah, so let me do that. Start the app again. Okay, it's got my session. It's able to load. So yeah, refresh while it's connected, checks for updates, and does the right thing. But back into airplane mode, if I hit refresh here, okay. Yeah, so it just throws that that HTTP error all the way up to the user interface. Yeah, so yeah, that's the first thing to do is instead respond to that error and have the have the library continue to retry, because that mechanism of trying to connect to the replicator in the back end should just be completely a background process, with some visibility, some way that the app developer can bind that status to some indicator on the user interface to show you you're disconnected right now, but your app is still working.
Yeah, what I like is to have three statuses there. Either you have, for example, a status bar, which is green, means everything is fine, synchronization is perfect. Either you make it yellow, which means I don't have new data locally. Yeah, I don't have new data here, so I don't have to upload anything, but I cannot synchronize. So
Okay.
maybe there is new data on the server, and I don't know because I cannot synchronize.
Mm-hmm.
Or make it red, which means I do have new local data, and I'm unable to upload it. Because that's the most dangerous scenario.
Yeah.
If my device crashes or I lose my device, I have local data which has not been uploaded. So
Yeah.
the data is at risk.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can imagine one of the field workers using your application, they say, "Okay, did the thing," and turn off the phone, stick it in their pocket, and go on to the next thing, and they don't have any indication that they haven't actually reported in. But yeah, with that red indicator, they record their status. They see it's red, and they'll remember, okay, I need to make sure that I check again once I'm in range, because right now nobody knows.
And it's quite understandable for them. If it's green, everything is fine. If it's yellow or red, I do have a problem. And if it's yellow or red, I mention a date and a time for the last
Yes.
successful synchronization.
Mm-hmm.
So if they see it's yellow and it's yeah, half an hour ago, who cares? But if it's yellow since 3 days, then we have a big problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent.
So
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to rewatch this episode and take notes of these. These are precisely the requirements that I want to capture. So yeah, there should be a way that the application developer can just data bind to those exact properties, so they can present them however they want them.
mhm.
Excellent. All right. Well, I believe that is an update. That is where we are.
Mhm. Okay, that's nice. We are getting there step
Uh huh.
by step.
Yes, indeed.
Mm. But so the error we are seeing now is not necessarily a SQLite error at this stage.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. It's still in the core
Probably
library. Yeah.
there probably is one also, but
Mm-hmm.
um, okay. The MAUI application, the source is in GitHub, I thought. Eh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is. I believe I have put it on the. Um,
I saw it somewhere.
yeah, it is in the Janaga organization. So github.com/Janaga/blog Maui. The idea being that we'll take that blog uh, model and also have an example with Blazor and with React
Mm,
Native and React.
okay. Now then I will search for the latest source code of SQLite and see whether we can integrate that.
Mm-hmm.
Once I'm home, let's see what we get.
Yeah,
Okay.
very good. Yeah, and also, you know what? I don't have a README on that. I need to add a README to that repo. But then you'll be able to check out the instructions that are in the README and make sure that it correctly instructs you how to set up a replicator of your own and get everything working. That's going to be an
Okay,
important
on the
part of it.
MAUI repo, you mean?
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. And one of these days, I'll need to actually stand up the Janaga.net website with all of these instructions. So Janaga.com is still TypeScript focused. And I think I want Janaga.com to be TypeScript and Janaga.net to be .NET and have them link to one another.
And you don't want to make it the same website?
I don't know yet. Yeah, I have both those domains, and so right now Janaga.net is just forwarding to Janaga.com. Um, but yeah, it's kind of neat to have those two domains. Um, so um, so
Because
it
then
could be that.
you should have Jinaga.js,
Mm, that's true.
Jinaga.net and
Yeah,
Jinaga.js.
is .js a top level domain? I think it is actually. Hmm. I'm gonna have to register that now that.
I would say from the island of Guernsey also. It's probably that's probably not might be under the UK.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm seeing in 2021 .js is a top level domain. Yeah, so I might be able to grab this one. I'll have to find. I use D and Simple for all my DNS and most of my domain registration. I'll see if DN simple registers.js.
For price which is not too exotic.
Yeah. Otherwise, I'll say, yeah, it's fine. People can search.
No, but then you would have a nice
Yeah.
distinction between the two.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and then Janaga.com could be kind of the umbrella of, this is the whole Janaga project and the replicators of service and where you go for support and all that stuff. And then JS and .NET having their own examples and documentation.
Yeah. That would be great.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay.
Well, Jan, enjoy the rest of your trip.
I'm going to walk a little bit in the sun. Next week, Thursday, you're there?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I am.
I will be there as well.
Excellent.
Okay, Michael, thank you very much for the update, and see you next week then.
Indeed. See you then.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.